Okay, hi, it's great to have everyone here. Thanks for joining. I was just thinking before we begin, maybe we can, we'll say, let's dedicate the merit of our study, of our Torah study today, to our brothers and sisters in Ukraine and all the good people that are there, that are caught in this tragedy. Hashem should send them the salvation they need and to protect them from all harm. And that we should have an end to this war speedily, with only good for the whole world. It's coming of Mashiach, please, from this. So let's continue. Let's just finish off what we were speaking about last week. Last week, we mentioned the third Mishnah in the first chapter of Pirkei Avos. And we talked about Antigonus Ish Socho. He was the leader of the Jewish people who received the tradition from Shimon HaTzadik. And the last thing that he said was, well, basically, let's say the whole thing, what he said, that don't be like a servant who serves their master out of the idea that he'll receive a reward for the sake of receiving a reward, but rather be like servants that serve their master not for the sake of receiving a reward. And nonetheless, let the fear of heaven should be upon you. So we spoke about a lot of these ideas and why it's good to be altruistic, to serve God, and not thinking about our own selves, but thinking about the great merit we have to serve God and to fulfill what he wants. He's the boss. But let's talk about this last line over here, that be like a servant that serves their master, not on condition to receive a pras, which is a reward. Interesting word. Doesn't say schar, which we think about often as reward. Pras means like a piece. Don't be like the servant that serves their master, because he's going to get tossed a little piece of something. And finally, let the fear of heaven be upon you. What does that mean? What are we exactly trying to express? So I let me start off with maybe two short anecdotes that will hopefully highlight this a little bit. The first one is an analogy. Basically, if a person has to consider his purpose in the world. What's the person's attitude to why he's here? So you can think about it in two ways. You can think like he's a wagon driver, he could be like a wagon driver, or like a person enjoying a delicious meal. Okay, a wagon driver, he's doing his job because he's getting paid. He wants the money, right? If you would tell him, listen, don't take that journey, stay at your house, put on Netflix, and order a pizza, and I'll give you the same amount of money that you would have earned if you would have taken an 8-hour trip on your wagon. He'll say, great, I'm interested. That's the bottom line, is I want the dollars and the cents. So he'll do it because that's all he wants, right? And if a passerby, sees a guy, carrying a heavy load, he's going to ask a guy, like, what are you doing? Why are you carrying this heavy load? He's going to say, because I'm working today. Obviously, I want to earn my keep. So I'm making some money. What I can do? I got to shut this huge thing. He works to make money. However, contrast that with a person that's enjoying a delicious meal. Okay? The person, if someone's going to ask him, why are you eating that? The obvious answer is going to be because it tastes good. I'm hungry. It makes me feel good. I'm having pleasure from this, right? He's not being paid to eat. I don't think there's anyone, maybe only that guy that's in the hot dog eating contest. That guy gets paid to eat. But most people don't get paid to eat. Anyone know that guy's name? I don't know. But anyway, I've heard about it. I haven't seen it, but that type of guy gets paid to eat. A normal person to eat because you're hungry, you need to live. So he's doing it for pleasure, right? So if you think about it, the enjoyment and therefore the reward are intrinsic. In the very act itself, he's enjoying it and he's having pleasure. That itself is like the reward. You're not getting paid to eat, right? So intrinsic in his job is pleasure and reward. So this is kind of the idea that Antigonus Ish Socho is telling us, the way that we should view serving God and our purpose in the world. It's not as a chore that's deserving of pay. I got to do it. If I could get around serving God and still get the same reward, I will do it anyway. That could be one way a person looks at it. But Antigonus is saying, no, that's not the way you have to view it. It's an enjoyment, which is an end to itself. I'm doing it. I'm not getting paid for it. I like it. It's geschmack. It tastes good. I appreciate it. I like this. I would do this. Okay, I'm not getting paid. I like putting on tefillin. I like learning Torah. I like doing kind deeds to people. I do this because this is what you're supposed to do. That should be the perspective with Torah and mitzvahs, serving God and doing them because I have an appreciation and I value and I want to do it. Now it takes work. A person's got to work on himself to get there, but that's the ideal. Okay, that's one. That's one. Another anecdote that I saw discussed was from, there was a great Hasidic master, one of the early ones. His name was Rav Usher from Stolin. Okay. Stolin is a community. It was, well, there's many places. This Rav Usher inherited the mantle of leadership from his father at a young age. And at that point in his life, he wasn't, looked upon as a great leader. He had peers, he had study partners. And as soon as he inherited the mantle of leadership, put one of his very close friends kind of a pickle, tight bind, meaning because until now they were, they looked at each other as friends, as so to speak, equals. Now the friends, he became a Rebbe. He became the leader of a whole group, a whole army of dedicated Hasidim. So his friend looks at this relationship as a little bit, what do I do now? So the new rabbi of Usher, he says to his friend an interesting thing. He says, "Are you afraid of me?" His friend, afraid of you? He didn't answer because, we're buddies. We've been studying together for a long time. But he wasn't satisfied. He persisted. He said, "Are you afraid of me?" Again, the chassid did not know how to react, and he said nothing. Finally, the Rebbe repeated his question one more time. He said, "Tell me, are you afraid of me?" And his friend blurted out the following answer. He said, "I'm afraid to do something that will spoil the love that is between us, that will sour our relationship. That's what I'm afraid of." So what would you think the reaction would be? When I read it, I was anticipating him to say, "Oh, that's lovely. It's beautiful." But the answer was, he angrily lashed out and he says, "How dare you define our relationship in those terms? You're afraid of doing something that will spoil the love between you and I." That is what true fear of heaven is about. And if that is what true fear of heaven is about, is being afraid that I will do something to ruin my relationship with Hashem, you can't define our relationship as that. That's your relationship with God. That's how we have to approach life. Is I don't want to do anything that's going to upset the love that I have with God and that He has for me. I can't fathom doing something that would upset Him. Just like you love your spouse, you love your parents, you love your kids. You don't want to do something that's going to spoil or sour that relationship. So the same thing over here with Hashem. That's the idea. Is I'm trying to create this perspective, this mind frame that I have a loving and a close relationship with Him, and I don't want to do anything to hurt it. This is what Antigonus Ishsoko is telling us. And so when I think like that, it's not even about reward. I want to serve God because it's what He wants. I want to make Him happy. I don't want to anger Him. I don't want to make Him upset, so to speak. So therefore, I'm constantly thinking about that. And if that's at the forefront of my mind, I'm going to be a better person. That's how we'll, there's other comments over here. Some, I'll give you just another nice interpretation that the Lubavitch Rebbe actually says. He talks about this idea of don't be like servants that serve for reward. Okay, so first we have servants that want reward. And now we have servants that don't want reward. And we have the fear of heaven. So listen, he calls these 4 stages. Okay, in our divine worship. Number 1, don't be a slave. So the lowest level is instructing man, don't live off animal instincts, right? The only motivation for an individual on that level, on a low level, to jolt him out of his spiritual inertia is fear of the repercussion of sin, which is known as a lower fear. Because a person that's into, just, okay, that's the stage that he's at. He's only thinking about physicality, animal instinct. So what speaks to that person? Fear, punishment, that's if that's what sets him straight, okay. That's a low level, but it'll get him, and it can go higher from there. The next one is for reward. A second level is the individual is motivated by physical and spiritual rewards that he gains from serving God. I'm going to serve God because I want a good afterlife. I want to get good in this world. What can I tell you? I want the reward. Okay, that's called minor love because it's a self-oriented love. He serves God, but he's thinking about what he's going to get out of it. Okay, we're going a step up. number three, not for reward. So on this level, an individual recognizes that even the greatness, even the greatest reward is only what we called, like you said in the Mishnah, a pras, a small piece. It's not a full, can't, like we said last time, there's no reward for mitzvah in this world. So the guy thinks, okay, I know I'm not getting the full reward. I know I'm just going to get a piece. And that pales in comparison to the sublimity of being subsumed by the author, by the mitzvah fulfillment, what I could get from that. There's nothing that can compare to that. So it's called great love because it's comparable to like a small candle that is next to a bonfire. It's a selfless love because the natural desire of that small flame, I just like, why be my own small flame when I could be subsumed in the bigger flame? I want to get there. I want to, even though it's going to spell the end, so to speak, of his independent identity, but he says, I want to merge with God. I want to lose myself in God, have his transcendent experience. This is a very high level, not for reward. I just want to be close with God. But still, if you think about it in a subtle way, it's about him because I want to be subsumed in God. I want to have this such a deep and close and powerful relationship that I don't exist. But once again, think about the I is still there. So on the highest level, we're talking about the level of righteous people, which is, maybe you guys can relate to it, but it's called awe of heaven, which means the soul is completely silenced and awed by the awesomeness of the divine. Even its desire to be subsumed becomes irrelevant. It's not about me anymore. It has nothing to do with my going up and higher and closer and closer. It's nothing that it's sort of just a silent recognition that, of God, being in the presence of God, which is a very powerful thing. And it's something that we can, I guess we can aspire to. Yeah, you have a question, I see a hand up.
So is this something that we can experience here even for a second?
It's a great question. There are probably moments. Yeah, I think there's moments that we can do that. But I don't know. Listen, I can't say that I've experienced it to tell you that. Yeah, it's we're all want to.
Because let me say something, like all our senses we can master just like God. That's really what he wants, right? For us to perfect our heart, master our senses. So is it possible that our senses can be like overtaken by God in a way that we're not willingly doing it?
So
like something else is?
Right. So that's what I said, like for us to get there, that's like the level of the patriarchs and the matriarchs, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, that the Talmud says that Hein HaMerkava, they were like the chariot. Like the analogy of a wagon, let's say a chariot, that's pulling a rider. So when you look at that chariot coming with the rider through the town, you don't say, "Oh, look at that carriage! Whoa, I guess nowadays maybe if it's a fancy car, you'd say, "Look at that fancy car." But if you're looking at the king's rolling through town, you're not gonna say, like, "Oh, look at who's schlepping the carriage. Look at the cattle that's pulling that wood carriage." Ooh, you're looking at saying, "Oh, the king. That look at his crown. Look at how glorified and dignified and honorable. That's the king." Ooh, you don't even notice what he's riding on because you're so enamored by the king. So that's what they said. The Avos were like Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. That you looked at them, you didn't say, "Oh, what amazing human beings." You say, "I see God when I see them," because their entire being was transformed into be someone that just carried around the divine presence. And every limb inherent, knew, there's a verses in the Torah that said Avram, he sent forth his hand to take the knife to slaughter Yitzchak. It says he sent. What do you mean he sent forth his hand? It's not the way I speak. My hand, I want to do something. There was a certain control of his every bodily function and every aspect of his life. Yaakov lifted up his eyes to see the men, Esav and his 400 men coming. It wasn't that just like I instinctively did it. No, there's a total mastery of sense and self and identity that they became nullified to the divine. And therefore you saw them, you didn't see them. You saw the divine because they were carrying it around. So for us to get to that level, I think when Mashiach comes, we'll be elevated to such a level. It says even our physical flesh and blood eyes will merit to see. So now the work is about training ourselves, training those muscles, it's creating a God consciousness. which takes a work time, a life of work, constant, and it's full of falls, but we get up every time. Like the King Solomon says, Sheva yipol tzadik v'kam. A righteous person, he falls down. He falls down 7 times. But guess what? He gets up again. And it doesn't literally mean the number 7. 7, as we know, is a mashal, an analogy for this world. This world is a full world of 7s, right? 7-day a week, 6 days, and then it's Shabbos. So the Shemitah cycle, the 7-year agricultural cycle that we're in now, 7 years, the period between Passover and Shavuos, leaving Egypt and getting the Torah, was 7 times 7 weeks of 7 days until the 50th day of Transcendent was. So 7 is representative of this world. And a righteous person, he falls, but he gets up, King Solomon says, because it's constant work and growth and challenging ourselves and trying to be better and realizing I made a mistake with this. And so now I know how to solve it next time. Oh, I fell again. Okay, but I'm going to do it. So that's the idea. So I think it's what our life is about. It's trying to strive to get there. And God willing, we do. And we help others along as well. These are 2. So those are 4 different levels of growth and of aspiration. Now, let's look at the next Mishnah in the remaining time that we have. The next Mishnah is actually it's unique in that we kind of changed gears a little bit of how the Mishnahs, the teachings are structured. As of now, we've had one person teaching others, and now we get to every Mishnah we're going to see now until the end of the chapter pretty much is with 2 people. They're pairs. And the reason is that Jewish leadership, it sort of evolved in this way, in that it wasn't enough for one person to just carry that load and be the leader, the teacher, the one that everyone could go to. They needed 2 to kind of handle this situation. So in each of the pairs, we're going to see that the first name mentioned is called the Nasi. And the Nasi was he was the president of the Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin was the high court of the Jewish people that had 70 sages, and he was, or 71. He was the Nasi. He was the head of it, and they would rule on capital cases and all major points of Jewish law. So he was the Nasi, the president. Basically, his civic function was to oversee the establishment of an accurate calendar. And he generally acted as a political representative for the Jewish community. And you think, well, overseeing a calendar, that's what's the big deal? The big deal is because all of Jewish life revolves around that calendar. It was a kind of a complex thing. Maimonides has laws about this, complex laws. And it was very important because, for example, Rosh Chodesh, let's say the new month is coming up this week. So based on when the new month falls out, I know when Purim is going to fall. Same thing with Nisan, the next month. It's very important because if I don't know the exact day when that month starts, I don't know when Pesach begins. And then I don't know if I can eat bread or I have to eat matzahs. Do I have to drink 4 cups? So it's the same thing every month. It's like that. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, do I fast? Am I going to have fast for 2 days, Yom Kippur, because I'm not sure which day was Rosh Chodesh? So his function was establishing the correct calendar and making sure that the entire Jewish community in the land of Israel and in the diaspora were aware of that, and the Talmud tells us how that played out. The second rabbi that's in the pairs, he served as what's called the Av Beis Din, which was the head of the court. He was not the president, but he was the head of the court, and his function was in the Sanhedrin. He was head of its judicial and legislative roles. He was in charge of the whole thing. Okay, so these 2. Let's read it, and I'll tell you a little more historical background on them. I'll read the Hebrew and I'll translate it as I go. So it says Yossi ben Yoezer. Yossi, his name was Yossi, and he was the son of a man named Yoezer. Ish Tsereda, he was known as the man of a city called Tsereda. And the Yossi ben Yochanan, and Yossi, the son of Yochanan, Ish Yerushalayim, the man of Yerushalayim, the man of Jerusalem, Kiblu Mehem. They received the tradition. There's a bit of commentators talk about who they received it from. Some say they received it from both, from Shimon HaTzadik, from 2 Mishnahs ago, and from Antigonus Ish Socho. They were students of both of them. First, they were students of Shimon HaTzadik, and subsequently to his passing, they were the students of Antigonus Ish Socho, and they received the tradition from them. And now we're getting into the first comment. And what it means, they were the man of that city, meaning that's where they came from, and they were a very prominent person in that town. And why they're called Ish, another reason is because Ish has to do with the kind of it symbolizes a total mastery of Torah. They were the embodiment of a certain level of perfection of Torah knowledge and secular knowledge, and that's how they got their distinct roles. They were called the Ish Ashkoliot, which is like a grape cluster. Ashkoliot is an acronym for Ish Shekol Bo, a man that has everything. He had all types of wisdom and knowledge and worldly experience that allowed them to be the consummate leaders of the Jewish people. So the Mishnah continues first with the teaching of the first rabbi, Yossi ben Yoezer. If you notice, both of them have the name Yossi. So Yossi ben Yoezer, the man of Tzereda Omer, he said the following teaching: Yehi veischa beis vad lechachamim. Let your house be a meeting place for scholars, number one. Number two, v'heve misabek be'afa raglehem, and you shall, let's say, bask, or, like I say, roll, but bask in the dirt of their feet, literally. And finally, the heavy shoysiv etzama as divriyam, and drink of their words thirstily. So 3 things over here. Let the sages be a part of your house. Sit at the dust of their feet, and drink thirstily of their words. So first, like I said, a little historical background. Just another point, another interesting thing, that the Maharal, a great 16th century rabbi from Prague, he writes that it's just an interesting thing. We're going to see throughout that consistently the statement of the first rabbi, who's the Nasi, emphasizes what we should do, like a kind of a proactive, a positive, what you should do. And the Av Beis Din is telling us what we should avoid or should not do. We're going to see this theme. So he tells us what we should do. What should you do? Let your house be open to the sages. It should be a meeting place for them. Number 2, sit at the dust of their feet. And number 3, drink thirstily of their words. So the Antigonus Ish Socho had 2 other students who are not mentioned here. And the reason they're not mentioned is because they were not famous like these rabbis, but more infamous. Their names were, they were known as the Bisonim, Bisus, and that Tzadok. There were two students, Bisus and Tzadok, and they had 2 groups, the Bisonim and the Tzadukim, which we may have heard of before. They were people that misunderstood, did not fully serve their rabbis, and came away with an incorrect understanding of a very fundamental teaching, and therefore they strayed from the traditional path of Judaism. And they misunderstood the teaching that we saw of Antigonus, which was serving God not for the reward, but serving him because you want to serve him, because it's the right thing to do. And they misconstrued the message. I don't know how exactly, but they misconstrued it to mean that you got to serve God and you're not going to get reward. There's no reward for service of God. It's just, you're slaves. You got to serve without receiving anything. So they said, what kind of crazy thing is that? Who is this God? He wants me to serve him and he's not going to pay me for it? No one does that. So they used that as an excuse to write off the words of the sages, and they created now they became a little extreme, and they wanted to write off everything in the rabbis, but they saw that people weren't going to follow that. So they went and they said that really the written Torah is the word of God. You got to follow that. The words of the sages, the rabbis, nah, they're making it up. It's not real. They want power, they want authority, and they're just trying to keep you under their spell. And they unfortunately attracted several people, and groups became of this. And they became another group known as the Terrorites, who even some say there's a small group that exists today. but it's basically people that believe in the written Torah. They don't believe in the authenticity of the oral Torah. And someone argued that other offshoots of religions, different parts are, based off this today, believing in a written Torah and not in the oral part. So that started in this time period, and then so because of this, right? Also, there was, excuse me here. Let's see. There it is. So since this was also, the Talmud tells us that it was the first generation when machlokus, the word arguments, when arguments arrived in matters of Jewish law. Until that point, the tradition was able to be passed down and conveyed in a very clear and comprehensible way. And at this point, cracks started to develop in the transmission. Students, as highlighted by these two students, didn't get the full understanding of the law. And so matters of Jewish law were left unresolved. So therefore, Yossi ben Yoezer, he's encouraging people to let their homes be the meeting places of the sages, in order that if a difference of opinion arise, it would be able to be solved by the sages there, and the people would get the correct understanding. Because if the sages are studying in the study hall and the common folk are not around them, so they might get the incorrect understanding of the law and deviate. So to try to avoid that, I say, no, bring the sage into your house, make a meeting group, a meeting place where people come into your house and you study together, and the sage can teach, and therefore you'll stay on the proper path. This was also the time of a person, his name was Antiochus Epiphanes, and he was a person that sought to alienate Jews from Judaism and force Greek culture upon them. Like we saw last week that Antigonus is a Greek name. He was also one of the Hellenists, and many Jews adopted Greek names, values, and consider themselves Hellenists. In fact, historical fact that Yossi ben Yoezer's nephew, his name was Elkimus. He was one of the more ruthless Hellenists, and he unfortunately facilitated the death of many pious people, including his own uncle, the one we're reading about in this Mishnah. Make your home a meeting place. So this is his main idea, right? Because also, like, if a person is not such a scholarly person, but if you put yourself around scholarly people, it's gonna rub off. You're gonna pick up some things. Maybe the class is happening in your house and you're busy, you're just hosting it, but you're gonna hear tidbits, you're gonna hear important things that are gonna impact you. So even every little nugget, every little kernel that you might pick up along the way is gonna be very important. We mentioned last week kind of like that analogy of a person goes into a perfume shop. You might not buy anything, you might not try anything on, but just the fact that you were around the perfume and it was in the air, you're gonna smell good. So too, a person that associates himself with Torah scholars, with people that are involved in study and teaching, so it's good to be around them. You're gonna pick up around them, pick up things, Torah ideas and knowledge. Not only that, you're gonna pick up something that's even perhaps in a way, it's just as important or more important than knowledge. It's proper behavior, proper perspective. And that means you see the behavior of a refined Torah scholar. Torah is there to refine us and to elevate us. If you're around people that are of elevated nature, you're gonna pick up things: behavior, proper speech, proper conduct, proper attitude, positivity. I think we can all see that when you're around a person that is like just a person that you like, that brings happiness, exudes warmth and light and happiness, you feel good too. If you're around a person that's not that way, you can, it rubs off. So putting ourselves around scholars is a very positive thing, because we learn from their behavior. Now, it teaches another idea. It's like, I saw a cute little idea. It teaches you how to host, right? We all like to host. We all have to host often, oftentimes in different things. So a person could think in terms of the context of this Mishnah that, let's say you're hosting a Torah class. Let's just use that example because that's what the Mishnah is talking about. A person might say, well, listen, I'm not a scholar. I'll host it, but I'm not going to, I'm going to leave them to their conversation. And conversely, as the benefactor, you might feel condescending to the beneficiaries. I'm hosting it, so like, hey, you owe me something, and like I'm doing you a favor. There's two ways. The person might think I'm not worthy of the information, but on the other hand, you owe me because I'm the one that's hosting it. So he says, Yossi ben Yoezer dispels those notions. He says, no, bask in the dirt of their feet. Remain in the presence, number one, even if you can't partake of the discussion, you don't get it, be around them, like we said, because there's a lot of benefits, a lot of side benefits. And number two, maintain that sense of humility by realizing that you're only on the level of their feet. And it's not that I'm great, I facilitated this and you owe me. No, okay, I'm doing my part, right? I want to be around Torah, and this is my part that I can do, so I'm doing it. Okay, that's the idea. Be around the dirt. Now, I'm going to share with you another idea, if I can find it. Not to be ashamed to have to sit in the dust. It actually was that this was the custom a long time ago, that the rabbi would stand, the person teaching class would stand, and the rest of the students would sit. So it says, don't be ashamed to be the one that's to sit, right? Don't be ashamed to be someone to have to go to a person and to get knowledge. A lot of us, it feels better sometimes when you're on the delivering side because you feel like you have it. You don't have to take from someone, but really it creates humility. It creates an idea to be like dirt. Like Abraham said, Avram says, I'm dust and ashes. And I'm dust and dirt. I'm very humble. Our sages tell us that was a very humble thing that he told God. There's a difference though between dirt and dust. And the difference is that, and we see that in our Mishnah, it says become dirt. I didn't say be the dust. So dirt also has positive. It's not just like become dusty by sitting at their feet. Don't be afraid to become filthy. Don't be afraid of serving them. No. Dirt also has a very positive quality because dirt has the ability to produce vegetation, right? And also, if you'll mix water with it, the granules can stick together. So the message, right, and it's a message of unity, right? It can create unity, create a certain oneness. Very nice, thank you. And it's a great comment. We should all that's right. Who's a wise man? A person that can learn from everybody, right? Every single human being has something you can learn from. Like I said before, God created every single person with a different disposition, a different face to teach us. Just like a person's face doesn't bother you, so too their disposition shouldn't bother you, and therefore you should try to learn from them. Everyone's got some unique piece of the puzzle, a unique spark of divinity that has to be learned from and integrated into our own personalities and consciousness. Dust, by contrast, is not fertile, and each speck remains discrete. So therefore it says that sit like at the dirt of the sage's feet. Even the lowest aspect of a true sage's life are permeated with humility and unity. And we can pick that up from him. And we should try to. I think we're running out of time, but that is the idea. I will just end with like a cool, like I've said a few times, some of the words have numerical value and they hint to other cool ideas, maybe mystical ideas sometimes. And we'll continue with this Mishnah next time. But anyway, since I mentioned these words, it said that you should have him misabeg ba'afar ragleim, sit at the dirt of their feet, even roll around in the dirt of their feet, serve them, be around them, just try to have him rub off on you. Like I said, it's about learning from each person and seeing that God created everything, created everyone, and we have a wise person can learn from everybody, and we want to learn from everyone and want to integrate the good, and eventually that good that we integrate will help us align with our true selves, and will help bring a unity amongst mankind, and will hopefully merit the final redemption. And these words, it says, "Veheve misabeg ba'afar ragleim." So the word ragleim, the numerical value is 288, which hints to a mystical idea that has to do with that number 288. That the idea is that embedded in all physicality, there's sparks of godliness, of holiness everywhere. And part of our using this world for the sake of our service of God is to extract those embedded sparks of holiness and lift them up for godly service. Meaning to eat, but I make a blessing before I eat. I thank God before I eat. I thank God that I have food. I thank God I have a house. And I thank God I have clothes, all the physical things I have. And I don't use them just for self-gratification. I use it that I eat, I say, God, I'm eating this, make a blessing, or I tell God, I'm eating this, I should have strength and energy to serve you. And I do, and then for my kindness that I do that day, my Torah, my mitzvahs are imbued with a certain godliness, a perspective, right? Clothes I'm wearing should be strong and healthy. The house I have, I should be strong and healthy. Money I earn, I should be strong and healthy to serve you. I should give it to charity. But I take out the sparks of holiness that are embedded in those physical things and I lift them up. That's hinted to with the number 288. Mystical sources talk about that there's that many sparks, but they're broken down into sparks, but they're everywhere. That's why we're using the physical world for godly service, to refine the world and take out the holiness. So that's raglehem. And the other words that said, the heavy misabek ba'afar, sit at the dust of the feet, be humble, learn from everyone, create a unity. The numerical value of those words are Malchus Beis David, which means the kingdom of King David, the kingdom of the house of David. Because the kingdom of the house of David is the ultimate humility, the ultimate leadership, the ultimate bringing together of all people, all Jews, all of mankind under one banner to serve God, to recognize our unique roles, that we have to learn from one another, and that we have to serve God. So if we do that, and we merit that, we'll merit to elevate the physical world, so that, like we said before, our physical eyes will merit to see when God reveals himself with the coming of Mashiach speeded in our days. Everybody, have a great week. Thank you for joining.
Amen. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Shkoyach.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Shalom, Rabbi.
Shalom.